Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 36. This is correct, right? Oh, yeah. Okay, Text 36, yes. Natosmyaham taccharanam samiyusham bhavat chayam swastyan ayanam sumangalam yo hyatma maya vibhavam saparyaga yatha nabhasvantamatha parikutam kuta natasmaham taccharanam samiyusham bhavat chayam swastyayanam sumangalam yo hyatma maya vibhavam smaparyagad yatha nabhasvantamatha parikuta natosmaham taccharanam samiyusham bhavachiyam swastyayanam sumangalam yo hyatma maya vibhavam smaparyagad yatha nabhasvantamatha parikuta. Nata, let me offer my obeisances. Asmi, am. Aham, I. Tat, the Lord's. charanam feet, samiyusham of the surrendered soul, bhavat chidam, that which stops repetition of birth and death, swasti ayanam, perception of all happiness, sumangalam, all auspicious, yaha, one who, he exactly, atmamaya, personal energies, vibhavam, potency, sma, certainly, paryagat, cannot estimate, yatha, as much as, nabha, the sky, svanantam, its own limit, atha, therefore, apare, others, kuta, how. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? Once again, therefore it is best for me to surrender unto his lotus feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? Purport. Lord Brahma, the greatest of all learned living beings, the greatest sacrificer, the greatest observer of the austere life, and the greatest self-realized mystic, advises us, as the supreme spiritual master of all living beings, that one should simply surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord in order to achieve all success, even up to the limit of being liberated from the miseries of mature life and being endowed with all auspicious spiritual existence. Lord Brahma is known as the Pitamaha, or the father's father. A young man consults his experienced father about discharging his duties. So the father is naturally a good advisor. But Lord Brahma is the father of all fathers. He is the father of the father of Manu. Who is the father of mankind all over the universal planets. Therefore, the men of this insignificant planet should kindly accept the instruction of Brahmaji and would do well to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord, rather than try to estimate the length and breadth of the Lord's potencies. His potencies are immeasurable as confirmed in the Vedas. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate Swabhavika Jnana Balakriya Cha. He is the greatest of all, and all others, even the greatest of all living beings, namely Brahmaji, admits that the best thing for us is to surrender unto him. Therefore, only those persons with a very poor fund of knowledge claim that they themselves are lords of all that they survey. And what can they survey? They cannot survey even the length and breadth of a small sky in one small universe. The so-called material scientist says that he would need to live 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of the universe, being carried by a Sputnik. This is also utopia because no one can be expected to live 40,000 years. Besides, when the space pilot returned from his travel, none of his friends would be present to receive him back as the greatest astronaut, as has become fashionable for modern bewildered scientific men. One scientific man who had no belief in God was very much enthusiastic in making plans for his material existence, and therefore opened a hospital to save the living. But after opening the hospital, he himself died within 6 months. So one should not spoil his human life, which is obtained after many, many changes of bodies in 8,400,000 species of life, simply for the concocted material happiness of life through increasing artificial needs in the name of advancement of economic development and scientific knowledge. Rather, one should simply surrender unto the feet of the Lord to make a solution to all miseries of life. That is the instruction of Lord Krishna directly in the Bhagavad Gita, and that is the instruction of Srimad Bhagavatam by Brahmaji, the Supreme Father of all living beings. Anyone denying this surrendering process, as recommended both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and for that matter in all authorized scriptures, will be forced to surrender unto the laws of material nature. The living entity, by his constitutional position, is not independent. He must surrender either unto the Lord or unto material nature. Material nature is also not independent of the Lord, since the Lord himself has claimed material nature as Mama Maya, or my energy, Bhagavad Gita 7:14, and as Me Bhinna Prakritir Ashtadha, or my separated energy in 8 divisions. Therefore, material nature is also controlled by the Lord, as he has claimed in Bhagavad Gita 9:10. Maya dhakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. Under my direction only is the material nature working, and thus are all things moving. And the living entities, being superior energy to matter, have choice and discrimination, either to surrender unto the Lord or to surrender unto material existence, unto material nature. By surrendering unto the Lord, one is happy and liberated. But by surrendering unto material nature, the living entity suffers. So the end of all suffering means surrendering unto the Lord, because the surrendering process itself is bhava chiddam, liberation from all material miseries. Swastyayanam, perception of all happiness, and sumangalam, the source of everything auspicious. Therefore, liberty, happiness, and all good fortune can be attained only by surrendering unto the Lord, because he is full liberty, full happiness, and full auspiciousness. Such a nice sentence, I'll repeat it again. Therefore, liberty, happiness, and all good fortune can be attained only by surrendering unto the Lord, because he is full liberty, full happiness, and full auspiciousness. Such liberation and happiness are also unlimited, and they have been compared to the sky, although such liberation and happiness are infinitely greater than the sky. In our present position, we can simply understand the magnitude of greatness when it is compared to the sky. We fail to measure the sky, but the happiness and liberty obtained in association with the Lord are far greater than the sky. The spiritual happiness is so great that it cannot be measured, even by the Lord himself, not to speak of others. Once again, that spiritual happiness is so great it cannot be measured, even by the Lord himself, not to speak of others. It is said in the scriptures, Brahma Saukyam Fanantam, spiritual happiness is unlimited. Therefore, it is said that even the Lord cannot measure such happiness. This does not mean that the Lord cannot measure it and is therefore imperfect in that sense. The actual position is that the Lord can measure it, but the happiness in the Lord is also identical with the Lord on account of absolute knowledge. So the happiness derived from the Lord may be measured by the Lord, but the happiness increases again, and the Lord measures it again. And then again, the happiness increases more and more, and the Lord measures it more and more. And as such, there is eternally a competition between increment and measurement, so much so that the competition is never stopped, but goes on unlimitedly ad infinitum. Spiritual happiness is anandam buddhivardhanam, or the ocean of happiness which increases. The material ocean is stagnant, but the spiritual ocean is dynamic. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 4th chapter, Kaviraj Goswami has very nicely described this dynamic increment of the ocean of spiritual happiness in the transcendental person of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Om Gyanam Timarandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamanyam Radhi Sva Padantikam. So this is such a beautiful verse, so wonderful, such a powerful purport, and we can take great inspiration from this verse and this purport. The main theme of this purport is surrendering unto Krishna as a solution, as the remedy, and as the best goal that a person can achieve in their life. The material world is very, very exhausting and very impossible in all ways. The material world has so many problems. Prabhupada is describing, we try to solve one and another problem arises, even a bigger problem. Like Prahlad Maharaj says in his prayers or in his teachings to to his classmates, he says that the solution to a problem is more troublesome than the problem itself. And we see this so often in the material world. Just like in the Western countries, people are very much disturbed by mosquitoes. And so they've made different sprays to kill these bugs and the mosquitoes. And so they spray this, pesticide. People are also disturbed by the weeds because they want a beautiful garden. So they come and spray this Roundup. And the solution is there, a very nice solution. They make a solution for the material problem. But then we see from that same spray, that Roundup, then people get cancer. And they become very sick. And then you have a much, much bigger problem. So the material world, there's no solution to the problems. And to get out of it is also virtually impossible by knowledge, by even the practice of bhakti, because our practice is so limited. And the wonderful example that Prabhupada here is giving about the nature of this material world is this man who thought, there's so many problems, so many people are sick, let me make a hospital. Let me make a hospital and then people will be cured. And Prabhupada says he makes the hospital and 6 months later he dies. So we try to find so many solutions. In finding those solutions, our life goes away and we fail to gain the greatest goal in life, the greatest purpose in life. We fail to get that most valuable thing in trying to solve all these problems. Just like, I think Prabhupada gives us this in yet another example, that a man is going for attending a wedding. So the man is very, very happy, and the goal is, I think he's maybe even going for his own wedding. I don't remember if it was his own wedding or a different wedding, but he's going for a wedding. And he's sitting in his vehicle, and the vehicle, it's a very, very fancy vehicle, and it has no top. Yesterday I saw a car like this. There's like the old style, or you could say the convertible, where there's no top on the top of the car. And so he's coming, it's a beautiful day, bright, sunny, warm, and he's driving down the highway, and his cap flies off on the highway. And in his cap, he's kept some money. Just like people sometimes in the clothes, they keep their money. So he's put like a few $100 bills on his cap. And when his cap flies on the side, then he parks the car on the side, it's the highway, and he gets down and he goes and he chases his cap while dodging cars. But because it's the highway, the cars are coming so fast. In trying to do that, a car hits him and he dies. And he never reaches the wedding. So Prabhupada gives us the example that the wedding is going back home, back to Godhead. The wedding is realizing Krishna, which here Prabhupada so nicely is describing. The happiness is unlimited, never ending. The happiness is so unlimited that even Krishna does not know the happiness, the limits of the happiness of the spiritual world. And we will discuss this point more. So that is our goal, which is the wedding. But in the course of trying to get to the wedding and being properly dressed, because this man thinks, oh, how can I go unless I have a nice cap? How can I go unless I have some money with me? So in the course of prepare for the wedding, the man becomes so entangled, just like we become so entangled, we miss the goal and we don't reach the final destination. And many times we miss the goal even by the processes of spiritual life. There's so many different spiritual paths. People become so confused which path to take, or in the process of bhakti, we end up doing something wrong, making offenses. And in this process of our spiritual practice also, we become confused and we don't do our sadhana or our service properly, and we are not successful. So therefore, then what is the solution? Therefore, even Ramanujacharya, therefore, he said that the practice of bhakti is actually for the realized souls, for the pure devotees of the Lord, which Prabhupada has also said. Only when we are fully purified can we actually practice bhakti. So what is our solution? We cannot even do devotional service nicely. The solution, he said, is prapatti, or surrender. And therefore in Sri Vaishnavism especially, and also Lord Chaitanya inherited that from Sri Vaishnavism. He took that and put it part of his process also. Our process also says that the ultimate process is surrender to Krishna. And this we see in Prabhupada's teachings, therefore, this is what he emphasized. More than anything else, he emphasized surrendering our life to Krishna. And we see that Prabhupada's disciples, they also did that. They surrendered their life to Krishna. And that was the process that he taught them. They had so many faults, they had no good birth, they had no good training, and we all are in the same situation. But I'm speaking particularly of Srila Prabhupada's time, because at that time he was there. So he taught by his example. And they had so many imperfections, but because they surrendered, Prabhupada said they were perfect. And of course, part of that surrendering process is following the instruction of the spiritual master, which is practicing the process of bhakti. But one is following the process of bhakti in a certain way because one has surrendered to Krishna through the spiritual master. Just like people ask that, why 16 rounds? Why not 4 rounds, or why not 32 rounds? And actually, if you look at the scriptures, there's really no injunction that one must chant 16 rounds. There's no Shastric quote or support for that number. There's the support, a lot of support for the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, but there's really no, even the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is found just like maybe once or twice in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's not emphasized by as late as Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. What to speak of the Bhagavatam? You won't find in the Bhagavatam that chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare daily, and this will make your life perfect. So where do we get this practice of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra? I mean, in the Bhagavatam, we find Dhruva Maharaj chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we want to follow the Bhagavatam, we should be chanting that mantra. We find in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord Chaitanya is chanting Krishna, 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 He, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Pahimam. We also find him chanting Hari Haraya Nama Krishna. But we actually don't have references specifically pertaining to the chanting of the full Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. But this full Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and this chanting of the 16 rounds has been given us by the Goswamis of Vrindavan, by the associates of Lord Chaitanya, and they told us that Lord Chaitanya was always chanting this Maha Mantra, and by Srila Prabhupada. And it has been given to us, this specific number, that particularly has been given to us by Srila Prabhupada, and also some of the previous acharyas who prescribed other numbers as well. Like Prabhupada's own spiritual master prescribed 64 rounds. So then what is the process that we are following? We're not exactly following the process of bhakti as laid out in the Pancharatra systems. We're not exactly following the process of bhakti as described in the various Puranas and in the various scriptures. We are following the process of bhakti that is given to us by our acharyas, particularly Srila Prabhupada. Why? Because we have chosen to surrender unto their lotus feet. So therefore, the most important principle is the surrender. Because even the process of bhakti that we are doing, whatever we are doing is by their direction, by the direction of these great souls who we have chosen to surrender to. So surrender, therefore, prapatti was most highlighted by Ramanujacharya. And it was highlighted because this is in fact the only solution to all of our problems. Through our own spiritual practice, we come closer to Krishna. It is a fact, we come closer to Krishna. But the most effective process, again and again described in the Bhagavatam, is if the devotee and the Lord carry us. The most effective process is to surrender to them and depend on their mercy. And again, they're both sort of one and the same thing. Surrendering means action, which means doing the practices of bhakti as directed by them, that we follow the scriptures. So they're both connected, but the devotees is depending the most on the mercy of the Lord and his devotees, because they know that otherwise it's impossible. Just like Prabhupada gives a example in the Bhagavad Gita, such a beautiful example he gives of the sparrow and Garuda and the ocean, where the sparrow lost her eggs in the ocean. And having lost her eggs in the ocean, she became very, very sad. And then when she saw that the ocean had taken it, she said, I will get my eggs back, and with my beak, I will empty out the ocean, because they're in the ocean. So if she empties out the ocean, she'll find them at the bottom. So with a little beak, she starts emptying it out. And this is her determination. Without determination, without the desire to serve the Lord, we can't get anywhere. But as we know, that is a truly an impossible task. If the sparrow depends on her own strength, she is a fool. So similarly, attaining the Lord is like trying to empty out the ocean with our hands. That is an impossible task. But then when Garuda sees the determination of the sparrow becomes merciful. Garuda becomes merciful and helps the sparrow. And then, of course, she gets her eggs back immediately. So the same is true. Prabhupada says, God helps those who help themselves. We must be determined. But we must know that without the mercy of the devotee, without surrendering unto Krishna and his devotees, we cannot make any progress. It is like trying to empty out the ocean. We may empty out one bucket, but that's no progress in comparison to our goal, which is emptying out the ocean. So, the solution to this material world is surrendering to Krishna. And if we do this, then the happiness that we experience, the second point that Prabhupada here is making, the happiness that we experience is so great that even the Lord himself cannot estimate the happiness of the spiritual world. And the general point is being made here in the translation, that the Lord cannot estimate his own limits. So this is actually a very interesting point that is made by Prabhupada different places, and by it's a big discussion in philosophy. Philosophers ask this question, that can God can God build a rock that he cannot lift? This is the quandary that is raised as a challenge to theists. Philosophers ask, can God build a rock that he cannot lift? And they argue that if God cannot build a rock that he cannot lift, then God is not all powerful, because he cannot do something. And he should be able to do everything if he's all powerful. And if you say that, well, he can build it and he cannot lift it, then you say, see, God's not all powerful because there's something that God cannot lift. So I've heard that Srila Prabhupada was asked this exact question about this rock question, because this is a very common, I encountered it in my philosophy class as well. It's a very common philosophy question. And Srila Prabhupada responded in exactly the way that he responds here in this purport. Prabhupada says, yes, God can build a rock that he cannot lift, and then he can lift it. And then after he lifts it, then he can build another rock that he cannot lift, and then he can lift it. So Prabhupada responds to it and actually defeats the philosopher's challenge by this principle that Krishna is ever expanding. Because Krishna is unlimited, therefore it resolves all contradictions. Krishna is ever expanding, and because he's ever expanding, no one can know his limits, and therefore even Krishna himself doesn't know his limits, because he knows his limits, but then he expands more. He doesn't know his limits, and then he expands more. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam which says that even the Lord does not know the extent of his Maya. He doesn't know the extent of his own power. What to speak of us? What to speak of realized souls? Therefore, everyone is entranced by Krishna. Even those who play with him every day are fascinated by him, because every day Krishna's potencies manifest newer and newer qualities and beauty and rasa. Krishna is an ever-increasing ocean of rasa. Krishna is Akila Rasamrita Murti, right? Ever-expanding ocean of rasa. And including the Lord, no one knows his limits. The most pertinent, the most stark example of this is Brahma's own life. He's saying, I don't know his limits. I don't understand the end of his powers. Therefore, it's best to surrender unto him. And when did Brahma experience this? With the Brahma Vimohana Leela, when he goes to Vrindavan, and there he sees that the most powerful Almighty Lord is dancing at the call of the gopis. The Mother Yashoda and the others would say, you dance and I will give you a cup of buttermilk. And then he would dance for that buttermilk. And he thought, how could the creator of millions of universes be this small child? Which is, a very genuine question. We tend to, think, oh, Lord Brahma wasn't an advanced devotee, but I mean, he honored the Lord so much. He was so, respected his Lord so much. He thought it is impossible that he can become a toy in the hands of his devotees. And so therefore he tests the Lord. He tries to understand his energy. Well, maybe he is. So let me test him. Let me try to understand how his energies are working. And he takes all of the coward boys away. Now, Lord Brahma thought that if he's God and if I'm taking him away, then, Krishna is going to, give me a punch and get all the children back. So that'll confirm how Krishna's energy is at work. But Krishna is so wonderful that he steals it, and then Brahma comes back and everything is unchanged. I mean, he showed his power by saying, like, look, I couldn't even be bothered. It's a waste of my time to even slap you. That's how wonderful I am. And so then Brahma, what does he realize? He says, I just need to surrender to Krishna. No point trying to understand through my, minute intelligence who Krishna is. I should just surrender unto him. So what's very interesting is that in this purport, among all the energies of the Lord that are unlimited, Prabhupada here is focusing on, expanding on the happiness and the joy of surrendering to Krishna. That happiness is unlimited. He's focusing on Krishna's power, spiritual power of happiness. So first part is saying we should surrender to Krishna. And then Prabhupada is saying if we surrender to Krishna, then what is the result? The result is this happiness. And then he says, what is the nature of that happiness? Brahma Sokyam Fanantam, right? The nature of that happiness is that It is unlimited and never ending. Unlimited means that it's ever increasing. See, this is why Krishna is also unlimited. It's actually very philosophical, very deep, why Prabhupada uses the word ever increasing. Because one thinks, oh, Krishna is unlimited, so I just don't know his limits. But the point is that infinity by definition, and even mathematicians say this, needs to keep increasing. Because otherwise, eventually you will find its limit. In infinite time, you will find its limit. Just like in math, but that's not the case, right? If you find the limit, then it's not unlimited. Just like in math, when they say infinity, they put a line, and on the other side, they put an arrow. Why? Because it's not just that you don't know the limits of it, but it's also that it's ever increasing. The arrow keeps moving. So the nature of this happiness, because Prabhupada here says so nicely, he explains it very philosophically, because it is not different than the Lord. The happiness of the Lord is not different than the Lord. And because Krishna is unlimited, ever increasing, therefore the happiness derived from surrendering to Krishna is also unlimited. Coming in touch with Krishna means coming in touch with the happiness, the Ananda Shakti of Krishna, the spiritual power of Krishna's happiness, and therefore it must also be unlimited, and it keeps increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing, like that line of infinity. So it's very not just a principle of bhakti, but very philosophical, why Prabhupada is telling that spiritual happiness is never ending. It is unlimited. It is unlimited in quantity and also never ending in time. So Brahma Sokyam Tunantam, in this verse especially mentioned, it is Nayam Deha Deva Bhajan Niloke Kashtana Kaman Arati Vitu Bhujanye. What's the third line? Anyone can mention? It's slipping just from my mind. And then the fourth line is Brahma Sokyam Tunantam. So in the third line, it says that it is unlimited and never ending. So that is the spiritual happiness. And the opposite is this material world. It is very limited and it ends. The happiness of this material world, Krishna defines in the Gita, it is dukhalyam and ashashvatam. The happiness is very limited. In fact, there's suffering. And even if you do get so much happiness, and you feel you go to the heavenly planets and you're just enjoying and enjoying, then it has an end. It is ashashvatam. So both of these things make this material world very, very dissatisfying. And the complete opposite is the spiritual world, that it is unlimited and never ending, and therefore the spiritual world is perfectly satisfying. So we need to take shelter of this Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. We need to surrender to this Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. We need to surrender and take shelter of this unending spiritual happiness, rather than take shelter of the material happiness. We keep trying to solve the problems of this material world, but then we miss the whole ocean of happiness that is next door to us, that is just waiting there for us. We chase the meager happiness of this material world, birth after birth. And so many songs of our acharyas, especially Bhaktivinoda Thakur, emphasize this point, where Bhaktivinoda Thakur, again and again, he says that how my whole life I've tried to chase this happiness of family life, family, friendship and love, and society, friendship and love. I'm a big person in my community. I'm a big person in my society. I'm a respected person in my family. I'm a very successful person in terms of my career. I'm a Nobel laureate. I'm a Peace Prize winner. And the chasing and getting these small bits of happiness is so troublesome. It's, one has to toil day and night to, get the edge, be a little successful, because others are not willing to toil so much. You have to work harder so you can be more ahead. And especially we Indians are very good at that. Americans actually have a good quality. They don't work too hard, right? They just, have a different form of enjoyment. We tend to measure our enjoyment by our success at work and different places. So, I knew an Indian man who is our neighbor. He used to come to the temple, very nice man, but he used to go to work 16 hours a day sometimes, from 6 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. And even on Saturdays and Sundays, because he told me, he said that I want to be the most trusted and important employee of my company. And if you work like that, then the next time there's a raise, you get it. And that's what he wanted. And that's what he got. But he was also one of the most miserable people on the planet, right? So we toil so hard for this material enjoyment. But we don't know that just a little effort in spiritual life gives us the ocean of unlimited happiness. And therefore, even from a material, even just from a logical perspective, a person thinks, if I, do a little effort on one side and I get so much result, and on the other hand, I have to work so hard for something and I get a little bit of result, then it makes sense to put effort in the part where I get so much result. If someone came and offered us a job that you work here, and if you work here, you work 1 hour, you'll get $200 an hour. And you work there, you'll get $20 an hour. Then naturally, we will choose the one that gives us $200 an hour, because we put our effort and our investment in a place where there's the highest return. That's the rule of investment. Invest where there is the highest return. So if we are getting the highest return in spiritual life, then our effort should go in spiritual life. If we invest in our spiritual life, we get the greatest return. And so our ambitions, everyone has to be ambitious. That's the nature of the soul. But our ambitions should be aimed at the Lord. That how greedy can I be for spiritual life? How much can I surrender to Krishna? And that is the devotee's ambition. That is the devotee's goal in life. So this happiness increases unlimitedly. And Prabhupada says that the transcendental person, who is the ocean of spiritual happiness, this dynamic, Prabhupada, Krishnadas Kaviraj says that very nicely, this dynamic increment of the ocean of spiritual happiness is found in the transcendental person of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it describes there that when Srimati Radharani sees Krishna, she becomes more beautiful. And when Lord Krishna sees Srimati Radharani, he becomes more beautiful. When Srimati Radharani sees Krishna, she becomes more happy. And when Krishna sees Srimati Radharani, he becomes more happy. So in this way, her beauty and her happiness increases unlimitedly just by her association with Krishna. In the same way, the soul being a particle, like ansha of the Lord, and especially Srimati Radharani, in the same way, our happiness, our spiritual brilliance continues to increase day by day. The more we serve Krishna, especially a liberated soul, when they see Krishna, when they serve Krishna, the more they feel enlivened. And like this, although they are already perfect, they become more and more perfect. Although they're already unlimitedly happy, they become more and more happy in their service to Krishna. And therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us that the very definition of pure devotional service is susukham kartum avyayam. Devotional service, by definition, is something that is joyfully performed. And it's something that's very nice. I was thinking about this, that therefore, if we're not feeling joyful in the service of Krishna, if we're not feeling a great happiness in the service of Krishna, it means that we're still trying to come to the platform of pure devotional service. It means that we're not on the platform of pure devotional service. Because we actually see that the devotees who are completely pure and serving Krishna, they may be in anxiety in trying to fulfill their service to Krishna. They may be anxious how they will serve. but they're very, very joyful. They're very feeling great bliss within their hearts. Srila Prabhupada was like this, very joyful, completely peaceful, happy, always anxious to serve Krishna more, but personally always very blissful. And therefore, even non-devotees, they said that his laugh was oceanic. When he laughed and laughed, and it was so oceanic that it made other people happy. Just his laugh would enlighten, uplift the entire room. So he was very blissful through, in and out, through and through. And that is the quality of pure devotional service. So the more we serve Krishna and the more purely we serve him, the more we surrender to him, the more blissful we get. And therefore, the only solution to our problems is surrendering to Krishna. We cannot keep figuring things out. We should just surrender our life to Krishna. I've given up. I can't figure out this material world. Krishna, please guide me. This is the realization of all the great souls, that I've tried to pursue my lust, my anger, my greed, and I become fully confused. Now I will just surrender to you, Krishna. You please guide me. I've tried it my way. Now I'm just going to try it, and it has failed. So now I'm going to try it your way, and you let me guide my life. And this just reminds me, a final thing Prabhupada says actually in the section of Maharaj Prithu Maharaj in the Bhagavatam, if I recall correctly, that when there is trouble in the life of a devotee, the devotee does not the devotee does the needful, a devotee solves it in a very spiritual, in a very transcendental way, but the devotee does not completely, become absorbed in it, but rather the devotee goes on chanting. And he says that if a devotee keeps chanting, the devotee keeps chanting and waits for Krishna to resolve that situation. So the ultimate surrender is, the ultimate solution is surrendering to Krishna. Not that we don't take care of things. The devotee is very responsible and very careful in his dealings in every way. But especially when it's a case where the devotee is being troubled by someone else, rather than being disturbed or becoming agitated, the devotee goes on chanting, knowing that Krishna, having surrendered to Krishna, Krishna will take care of things. And this is one devotee told me one pastime where I don't remember the details of it, but the devotee was being dishonored, or some trouble was there, and he tolerated for a very long time. And then finally Lord Narayan could not tolerate, so he was coming down. But then he stopped, and Lakshmi Devi said, "Why did you stop?" He said, "Oh, now my devotee is fighting back, is now taking things in his own hands, so I've stopped." So this is just had a very powerful impression on me, this thing, that that the Lord protects his devotees, but when we when we don't surrender to him fully, and part of surrender means doing our intelligence, using our intelligence, but when we don't surrender to him and we think that we need to protect ourselves and we are the protector of our own selves, then the Lord stops. Like Krishna appeared to Draupadi because Draupadi fully surrendered to him, and specifically is described that she did not even try to, her level of surrender we cannot imitate, but she did not even try to hold on to her sari. She was so confident of the protection of the Lord, she simply raised up her hands. And the moment she did that, the Lord was there. That Krishna immediately came and saved her. So the devotee's ultimate shelter is the surrender, is the protection of Krishna. And everything else is external. Externally, the devotee does everything necessary, but internally, the devotee is simply surrenders to Krishna in every situation. So I will stop here. We have about 10 minutes for discussion. If there's any questions, any comments.
Hi Krishna Prabhu. So I'm Siddharidas Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. Shri Prabhupada. I have a couple of questions, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
So it may be this got kind of came onto the surface, but may not be directly on the topic, Prabhu. So this is a devotee that says he's experiencing a shock. So the shock is that two things, like for example, these Bhagavatam discussions are happening, and most of the audience, their perspective looks to be like, I want to have some fun time, or in like the scientific discussion, not like philosophy, or like that, right? Or I can give more examples saying like surrender, so on, like that. And other one is even in the community of spiritual seekers, the more the attitude looks to be a little bit more of a fun time and social time and so on. And that's the community level. Actually, I want to step down to back it to individual family level. Between wife and husband, the thought is that if we can both practice together, it will be like much easier. But like you want me to do, and then there is that kind of disconnect as well, even between maybe it may be like it may be a different topic because it's wife and husband. But so that's the shock. The preliminary the idea is the spiritual seekers, although we are imperfect, but we all have small, we all join our small hand, our small hands. We can make a much greater movement together. But then it's giving a shock in the sense that it is not like that. Like so, to seek your comment, Prabhu.
If I understand, your question is that we have to surrender to Krishna, but so were you referring to the part that Krishna consciousness is joyfully done, therefore people also want fun in between? Or is it that what's stopping us from surrendering to Krishna, it seems, is that we have we want to do it gradually, and it's necessary to do it gradually to fully surrender to Krishna. Is that your point?
I got this thought surfaced in the beginning part, like in the initial 10-15 parts, like when we finish the purport and so on. So then I'm not able to make a real good connection with the discussion, like where and when it started. But generally, like it's also a general question that was brought up. If you're saying a community of devotees or community of spiritual seekers, it will be helpful. Everyone can join together. But there is a lot of difference even between wife and husband, and even between close friends, or to at a community level. It is a shock for the spiritual seeker. How do I go about it?
Yes. Yeah. So your point is, well, how do we solve this shock when people see this? What do we tell them? This.
Yes.
Like
I don't know. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. That's why Prabhupada, he gave the example that these temples and this movement is like a hospital where the patients will get cured, but they're still in the hospital. So Krishna consciousness gives us the unlimited happiness, never-ending, unlimited spiritual happiness. But we don't experience it right in the beginning.
Exactly.
Krishna consciousness makes us fully surrendered, but not everyone is surrendered right in the beginning.
Yeah.
And so therefore, there's different levels of devotees and there's different levels of surrender. And that point which you were mentioning earlier, in some sense, it does need to be gradual. We need to take it gradually. But also, if we take it too gradually, then we will also miss the wedding, like we were saying. We will get stuck on the way. So Krishna consciousness has to be done in a way that is
not too fast, not too quick, not too slow.
Well, it has to be done in a way that makes us advance spiritually, makes us come closer to Krishna, and for that we need to be very determined, right? So then the example of the sparrow is there. That yes, the sparrow cannot reach that goal in the same way we cannot overcome our anarthas or natures, but we have to be very, very determined to do it, and seek the help and mercy, the guidance of Krishna and his devotees. Yes. So we have to explain to people that yes, we're all on this path. We're much happier than materialists are, but also the material consciousness is still there.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess it's also leading to the second one almost. Maybe it is already clarified. So meaning that first is the appreciation, the surrender. It is explained as surrender to the unlimited and unending happiness. It's easier than the word surrender, because in this world, surrender word itself has a connotation. Hearing it, when the heart just goes away or repels actually. But it's attractive to know that surrender to the unlimited happiness and an unending happiness. The question is that the day one devotee or maybe a little bit practicing devotee may come and say, I'm not finding it. Maybe I'm not able to relate to it. That is one dilemma. Or the second one is, even if someone found it, someone may have experienced this unending and unlimited happiness for quite a bit of time, still they get drawn to this movies and all fun stuff going around, whatever they're used to. So that was the second part of my question I was having.
Yes. So our material habits, they go away very gradually because the material conditioning has been there for millions of lifetimes. And this is why the quality of a devotee is that when they're especially cultivating new devotees, they give them many, many chances, right? I experienced this in my spiritual life, that my spiritual master, the same thing, I keep making the same mistakes, but he keeps accepting the devotees back. There's unlimited patience almost that the devotee has, because they know that the conditioning is so deep. Of course, I should not take advantage of that. That my spiritual master is so merciful, so therefore I can keep making those mistakes again and again and again, or I can not surrender to Krishna again, because that's one of the offenses of the holy name, right? To not have complete faith in this process, even after repeatedly understanding instructions on this matter. But the devotee is so merciful that he keeps trying to help everyone. And sometimes it takes people hundreds of tries, hundreds of times. And we experience that every day in our chanting, right? Every day we think, today I'll chant nicely. We don't chant nicely. The next day we try, we don't chant nicely. So the thing is, yes, it's true that we are failing continuously and we don't experience that happiness. But the point that we sometimes forget, even as devotees and devotees preaching to newcomers, is that the alternative, which is material life, is also very, very miserable. Not like they have a very happy alternative. The reason people come to spiritual life is because they are miserable, deeply miserable. So, fine, the new person will come and say, I'm not feeling this happiness. But yes, sure, go watch as many movies as you like.
Okay.
But the fact is that I mean, at least my experience has been, as soon as you watch a movie, you feel very miserable after it.
Yeah.
And they experience this also. So that's a key thing. Therefore, Prabhupada always, he's so often, not always, but so often talks about, before talking about spiritual life, he talks about the miseries of material life. And he actually says in one place that spiritual life begins, and it can only begin when we see the misery of material life, because everything has a context. So spiritual life may not be so blissful, but the context is that the material life is even more miserable.
And it looks to be that's a known thing, or it's a habit or a practice. So then one is, we are getting, the one is getting drawn to think the other things are happier.
Yeah, I mean, that's then Maya's illusion that comes on us once we do become devotees, or practicing devotees, like aspiring devotees practicing, that then we think once we're devotees, oh, actually material life is better. Actually, my material life was so much nicer. When I was young and I was enjoying, I was so much more happy, or something like this. People, even those thoughts come to me sometimes, that, oh, this, devotional life is so troublesome, or something like this. But then Krishna gives us, devotees sometimes even leave the movement for some time for that reason. But then they get a full taste of material life and they come back. So that is Krishna's material energy, and that can come on anyone. And therefore the devotee constantly has to sharpen their intelligence by hearing, chanting every single day, so that we are reminded, and that our soul, wakes up. Oh my gosh, how fortunate I am to be part of this process. Or we have an experience, Krishna becomes very merciful, gives us an experience where we see how miserable people are. And that reminds us, like one time we went to visit a devotee who was in the hospital, and in a nursing home. She was staying there. She was it was a, what do you call it, a hospice. And she had Parkinson's, a very advanced devotee, but she had such a high level of Parkinson's. She was, giving up her body very soon. And we went there, and there's so many people there just like that. And it just shocked everyone. All the devotees went, like, how much misery there is in this material world. So we forget these miseries. It's a fact.
Thank you, Prabhu. But I was still thinking one lighter question to ask. Maybe should I wait for others, or should I go ahead, Prabhu?
I whatever, either way. Anyone else have a question? Comment? Sure,
Prabhu, I'll go.
Yes.
So I was only wanting to ask, what's your secret of getting happiness, if you can share in a lighter note, Prabhu?
Secret of getting happiness?
Yeah, what is your source of happiness? Where do you derive the happiness? If you want to feel happy, where do you go? Sorry for this question, but
I can only answer this question intellectually.
Prabhu.
Yes. So that is a fact, because the happiness that Prabhupada here is speaking of, this is the unlimited happiness that a devotee feels. And the thing is that once we experience that happiness even a little bit, we cannot give up Krishna ever. We cannot even enjoy material life, because that happiness will be so much better. Anything material will just feel like, what enjoyment is this? And personally, I'm still attracted to material enjoyment. So obviously I haven't experienced that happiness. But one story I'll tell you is one time I was on the Polish tour, and after the day's Harinam, then we had the festival. Like the Polish tour, they do Harinam for 3-4 hours, and then they have a festival. They stop at one location and they put up, like a festival of India, very beautiful tents with books and prasadam and dramas. And then at the end of the day, so we start in the morning, and the festival ends at like 10 o'clock at night. At the end of the day, the whole party, breaks down all the tents and puts it in the truck and then moves to the next spot. So at the end of the day, it was everyone was breaking down all the tents.
Yeah.
And while they do that, they on the stereo system they put this some kirtan or bhajan. It's very, it's a lot of work, but so blissful with all these devotees. So they put this, and they put this bhajan. It was Bibi Govinda Maharaj singing these verses of Jayadev Goswami, like those verses, right? Very beautiful. And they were so beautiful. And something, I think, there's so many devotees doing Harinam, devotees are there. Like some special mercy of Lord Chaitanya was there. For I still distinctly remember that it went on, and all of a sudden the devotees just started looking at each other. It was so beautiful. And Chandramauli Maharaj was there. And I happened to stand near him. I just happened to be there nearby. And we were just looking at each other both simultaneously. Like no one said anything. We just, it was like, if it starts raining, everyone looks up, right? So it was like that. And no one said a word. And I didn't ask him anything. He didn't tell me anything. No one else said anything. And he just started saying, he said, if we experience even one drop of this spiritual happiness, this spiritual happiness is like an ocean, he said. And if we experience even one drop of it, we would not be able to handle it. We would not know the extent of that happiness. Yeah. And it was so amazing for me, because I could be imagining something, but someone on his level is not imagining it. And separately, everyone at that time was feeling something.
Yeah.
No one was talking to each other and saying, are you feeling? So individually, people were feeling. And he was telling us that you just experience one drop of it, and it's too much for the soul. It's so much happiness. And so Krishna, as it says in the Nectar of Devotion, that he is so merciful that in the process of bhakti, he sometimes gives us these glimpses of happiness. And that's what we hold on to. We know it's genuine, because there's moments in our spiritual life all of us can think back to where we experience that happiness. Another occasion I remember in my life was one time when we were preaching in a prison house. It was in Boise. We went to a prison and we were preaching there. And we were doing kirtan they brought the prisoners in a classroom. And for a few moments, something happened in the room, like distinctly, because something happened in the room, because afterwards, devotees, the 4 or 5 devotees who were there, separately, they were coming and saying that, did you feel something? I felt something. I just felt something. I felt Lord Chaitanya's presence there. There's something that happened there. And you could see that Lord Chaitanya appeared. He's the most merciful one, most merciful, compassionate person. He appeared in this world to deliver the most, those who are suffering the most. And in the prison house, he was most happy when Krishna consciousness was in his prison house. His mercy, it was nothing that we did. It was nothing us. But everyone is saying, and that's when because it's like, not that I said it and then other people are saying, or someone else said, but afterwards they're coming and they're saying, I felt something. Did you feel something? So, yeah, I felt something. I was just going to tell you that I felt something. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes. Sorry, we are over time now. So thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, for your kind attention.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.